Hello, and welcome to Shedding the Bitch Radio, where you can discuss, debate, and get advice on how to discover and shed the bitches of fear, insecurity, self-doubt, and negative mindsets so you can realize your dreams and life purpose and create and accelerate the riches you want in life. Join us here live every Tuesday at noon Eastern and dialogue with us at 818-572-2910. You can also chat with us at Blog Talk Radio /SheddingTheBitch or share your stories on our website at sheddingthebitch.com. Whatever the bitch is that's holding you back from living your life to the fullest, it's not worth giving up the riches in life that you deserve. So call in now and let Bernadette Bowes know what's holding you back. 818-572-2910.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Shedding the Bitch Radio. I am so excited that you're here because we have a great, awesome conversation to be had today, and it's all about failure, but a good failure. Failure is a good thing. Good thing. But before we get there, just a few things. Be sure that if you like our show, if you want to share it, if you want to review it, if you want to give it a thumbs up, if you want to go out to iTunes, to Blog Talk Radio, to our sheddingthebitch.com radio channel, then please feel free to give us a review, give us a comment, give us a thumbs up, subscribe, follow. You know what to do. And don't forget about YouTube, because we're both broadcasting via podcast, but we're also video recording, and that will be on our Shed the Bitch TV channel on YouTube. So be sure to check them out in all of those places that you get podcasts as well. But today, I should say this episode is being sponsored by North Georgia Tax Solutions. Debbie Snelling and her team here in Atlanta, Georgia, but she serves the entire country. She's been sponsoring us for a number of years now, and she does fabulous full-service financial and tax services for small to corporate-sized clients. And you can learn more about them at ngtaxsolutions.com. Tell her I said hi and that I sent you, and she'll take great care of you and your personal or your business financial needs. All right, now let's get into this conversation, shall we? We are talking with Jason Wright, and during this episode, Jason's going to share his very relatable backstory to humanize, motivate, and inspire the audience. It will cover what he has learned about building and growing relationships with clients, team members, and his audience. Growth never occurs in the comfort zone. Love it. And requires regular failure, because this is how real learning is achieved. Repeated failures lead to adjustment and ultimately to success. He feels like the advice and the insights that he has will be applicable to everyone, and he hopes to convey, and I'm pretty sure he will, the foundational power of understanding mindset, motivation, and marketing at the same time. Isn't that awesome? All right, so what are you going to listen for? You're going to listen to see how you can turn fear into fuel. How to turn your biggest adversity into your biggest fan, or your adversary into your biggest fan, and how understanding your customer's journey will simplify your marketing. So your rich question, and for Jason and anyone new to the program, we ground everyone into a rich question that then allows them to think and consider something about their own journey, their own current state of being. So then as we talk with our guest, you're picking up on things that will be specific to what question or challenge you might be having. So your rich question for today is, how is your lack of acceptance of failure impacting your marketing, even your sales messaging? How is it impacting it? Because fear can do a lot of kind of damage to our messaging. And therefore, Jason's going to talk to us about how we turn that fear into fuel. All right, so let me introduce you to our guest, who's sitting there nice and pretty with a nice smile on his face. Jason's an author, entrepreneur, consultant, and digital marketing architect with a passion for helping other startups and small businesses with their sales funnel. Jason prides himself on his ability to connect with people and to speak to them in a language they understand. 3 cheers for that. Jason is able to design successful marketing plans, all while keeping a positive attitude and a sense of humor along the way, which you're going to learn very quickly, everyone. But as we get into this conversation, this is what I want you to do. I want you to check out Jason as we're talking. If you're driving, don't do this. But if you're watching, if you're in front of something that you could be doing some research, go to intentionallyinspirational.com. Intentionallyinspirational.com. And check him out. And of course, he's on Facebook, Intentionally Inspirational. And then you can find him on LinkedIn as well. And on Twitter, it's all around his podcast. It's INT-INS for inspiration and podcast. So it's INT-INS podcast. Jason Wright. Google him. You'll find him. He's everywhere. How are you, Jason?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm very good. Where are you calling us from? So a little bit before we get into all the other stuff.
So I'm in Martinsville, Indiana, about 35 minutes south of Indianapolis.
Oh, very cool. How long have you been there?
11 years or so. I'm from Indianapolis originally, but we've been down here something like 11, 12 years, something like that.
Nice. And anything in particular you love about it?
The dollar goes far with the housing here. It's inexpensive to live here. So low crime, decent schools, that type of thing. So a good place to raise a family.
Right. Very nice.
And I like my 4 seasons.
Yes. Amen to that. I grew up in Philly, went down to Boca Raton, Florida, miserable without my seasons, although I didn't want the snow. So landed here in Atlanta, and you get a kind of the best of both worlds.
Absolutely.
Yeah. That's very cool. But tell us, how did you get into the work that you're doing now? What was your kind of path to what you're doing today?
So it's kind of funny. I was an entrepreneur way back, but when I was in college specifically, had this lawn care business. Started it right after high school. So I had that taste of making decent money for myself. And I got to a point in college where I was like, man, I either need to like really grow this business and quit school, or quit the business and finish school. Like I can't do both. Right. So I listened to everybody around me, and my girlfriend, who's my wife at the time, and my mom and my father and all that stuff. And I closed the business and went in the corporate world. It only took about 7 years for me to go, man, I don't understand what's happening. I go to these companies and I go to my bosses and say, hey, there's more I want to offer you. You don't even have to pay me more. Just let me do it because I'll do a great job. And nobody'd ever let me do it. And I was like, I don't understand why people are keeping me bottled up. Like it just became maddening to me, almost like a caged animal. So my obsession became, I've got to get control over my time. That was like my biggest thing that kind of pushed me towards entrepreneurship seriously. And first time I tried it, huge failure, which we can get into if you like. And then eventually it worked out for me. But I was just like, I just want to make an impact my way with a little creative freedom, but nobody let me do it in any role I was in. So it just drove me nuts,
And well, okay, you kind of left us with a hook, which is beautiful. Beautiful.
I've been known to do that before.
Yeah, I bet. So tell us, okay, what's that failure?
Yeah,
we all want to be able to relate to someone else growing up.
It's funny because I was in HR at the time, and I was in a manufacturing job. So kind of a thankless role, a lot of hours, a lot of negativity around me. I just didn't feel like I was contributing anything to the world. I was just like, there's more for me. So I was like, all right, I want to do my own thing, but how am I going to convince my wife? Like, how am I going to say bye to the $80,000 a year job and the benefits and all that security, supposedly? So I came up with this opportunity. I think I found it on Indeed, actually. And what you do is you go develop these neighborhood magazines, and the company's a good company. There's a few that do it, but I knew some areas that they weren't in just because I'd never heard of it. I was like, I think it'd do well in this area, but I think I can make some money with this opportunity. So kind of presented it to my wife, and over the course of a few weeks, eventually she's like, go for it. And I was like, I never thought she'd say that because she's not an entrepreneur. So here's where I started making bad decisions. Quit my job, then went and bought a luxury car the next day.
Oh.
Okay. it gets worse. And then I thought I had about 6 months of savings, and I said, hey, I'll be from 0 to 80 grand in 2 or 3 months. She's like, how do you know? I was like, I just have a good feeling about it. No science to that timeline at all. I was just making something up for myself. So I get into this world of prospecting and a ton of rejection. And about a month in, I was like, oh boy, this isn't going to go well, So we run out of savings in about 3 months. So twice as fast as we had that darn luxury car payment. And I got to a point where I was like, I was above where I am right now. I was up on our 3rd floor in this little area up there I was working at the time. And I was like, I don't know how I'm going to pay my bills next month. I remember sitting there looking at my bills, and I was like, I have no plan. Like, I don't have any clue how I'm going to make money online. Like, I got the freedom I wanted, but I have no plan. But my pride is like, am I going to have to go back? Like, what am I going to do? So I told my wife, and I was working at FedEx part-time to get insurance. So I was making about $90 a week. And it was back-breaking work. It was in the middle of the night. It was just not a good situation. And the thing I remember is all the I told you so's, from the neighbors. I had a neighbor like argue with me, like, you can't do this, and I failed, so you're going to fail. He literally told me that, and now he hates me because I'm still doing it. But like my parents, my family's people were all like, don't do it, you're going to fail. And then I was like, here I am staring failure in the face. Like, how do I'm going to have to take this. Like, this is not going to be fun. It's going to destroy any pride I have. So eventually I had to beg a member of my family to help us. Like, can you just help us buy groceries? Because I literally can't buy food. And we worked out a little deal where I could get groceries and like pay the mortgage, and everything else was on me. And it was not fun. I had to sell a ton of outdoor stuff, sporting stuff, a ton of my possessions to just make things happen. And while this was happening, eventually I had to go back to corporate America. And everybody who met me found out that I was a failed entrepreneur. People like to tease me and stuff. It just didn't end. But I was still like, I'm not going to stop. Like, I'm going to figure this out. I don't know what I'm going to do. And I woke up one night and the phrase intentionally inspirational just popped in my head. And I said, I don't know what it means, but it's going to change our life. And my wife was not really in the mood to hear new ideas from me at this point. Didn't have a very good track record. So we went back to corporate America, and I started blogging. And I was talking to the earlier version of myself, encouraging people basically to quit their jobs. Like, if you feel like I felt, I challenge you to go make money, but I don't really know I don't know how to tell you how to, because I obviously hadn't done it. And then eventually I started to learn that if I learn a little bit of marketing, I can get more people in front of this method, and people would respond, but there was still no business model there. So to fast forward a little bit, I started having people say, hey, I noticed you set up this funnel with this program. Can you help me do the same thing? And I would help them, and I'd make money. And I'd go, wait a minute, can I do that again? And eventually I started to get monthly wins with a side hustle, and I was making some decent money to kind of complement what I was doing in the corporate world. And then about 18 months after I had gone back, I remember it was March. I was in mortgages and not making good money. And my wife said, hey, why don't you quit your job? I was like, huh? Wow. She's like, I think I've seen enough to know that you're good at what you're doing, and I think there's something there. Just quit your job and go for it. And I was kind of looking at her like, what's the catch? And she's like, just make it work. Like, that's the catch. And I was like, okay, this is never going to happen again. So when I went to put in my notice, like, people on my team were clapping for me because I was making more part-time than it was full-time there. And I've been doing this ever since, but it was not a fun road. It was a lonely road. Everybody, laughed at me, said, I told you so. But something inside of me said, I think I would rather continue to fail and try to do what I know I'm meant to do than just play it safe and be miserable and dying inside. Mm-hmm. So sorry, that was a long story.
No, there's so much. No. There's so much to unpack there. Yeah. And the first one would be, and just make note, I wanted to get to the question of, to make sure everybody is kind of on the same page with us. Yeah. I want you to get to where you're going to explain what a funnel is for people. Sure. Because remember, we have career professionals and business owners that listen to us. But before you get there, isn't it just amazing? Well, one, I'm sure you learned who your real friends and real supporters are.
Oh, yeah. And it's funny to see some of the people who went out of their way. It's weird how people that are your friends or people that you know, and all of us know these people. So be thinking about this as I say it. You never hear from them, and then they get this sense that something's wrong, and then they start calling you twice a day. And you're like, why do you keep calling me? Oh, I just want to check in. Are you feeding off my negativity? Like, what are you doing here?
Right.
You know? So it's funny to see those people rise up, and then after you do it for a while, they just kind of go back away. It's like, what's wrong with people?
Yeah, it is amazing, and yet it's actually quite enlightening because then you think you need all these people in your life, and you realize, you know what? You weren't serving me from the beginning, and you're certainly not serving me now. So,
yep.
And the other thing that I just loved about that is when you said that your employees, your fellow employees at your second job was clapping for you because they realized that this was something that, you were meant to do. And that intentional inspiration is awesome, just absolutely awesome. All right. So, excuse me. So failure, critical is what you're saying.
Yep. Oh, yeah.
Critical.
Yep.
So let's get into specifically what you're doing now. So go ahead and, if you would, explain for everyone what a funnel is and what that means to what it is you do, but more so how it can really benefit people that work with you.
Yep. So the way that I explain a funnel, and it's I'm specifically talking online, but it applies offline as well. There's basically three pieces to this machine. Every business has one. The first piece is traffic, right? People have to come to you. Potential customers come to you somehow, some way. Maybe they see a blog you post, a podcast, maybe they're responding to an ad, et cetera, et cetera. So you have free traffic and you have organic traffic, right? So everybody, I think, understands that. The next piece is what I call the front end. And that's the website, the landing page, the shopping cart page, the pages that people online see and interact with, okay? A lot of people think of a funnel just in those terms, and then they don't understand traffic or the third piece, which is the back end. The back end is actually the foundation of all of it. It's email marketing, the marketing automation, the text marketing, and the chatbots.
Right.
All that stuff is the magic that happens, and those three things kind of make a wheel: traffic, front end, back ends. So what I help people do is people will come to me and say, hey, I realize that because, and they don't call it the back end usually, they'll say like my email marketing has never been set up right. If people come in and they don't buy, then like I don't know where they go or I don't know what happens. So what I help people do is understand what I just told you, and then not only can I help with strategy, but I can help build all those different areas as well. So from a high level, that's the core of it.
Right. And I love that. That was high level enough, but in language that people can understand, which I loved and I hooked to, obviously, in your profile, because I come from the techie world myself, and I was described as a translator between the business and the techie. So I absolutely love that. All right. So, but you also talk about how failure and how fear, I love the whole fear, it turns into fuel. So we want to talk about that, but also the fact that how that can impact or influence how someone is messaging themselves or messaging their business or messaging their products and services. So let's start with the fear to fuel. What are your beliefs? What is your story in regards to that?
Yeah, so fear is a very interesting feeling or emotion. Like all of us experience it, and there's really two things that we do when we feel fear, right? It's fight or flight. And, some personalities are stronger than others. I have a pretty strong personality, but don't get me wrong, there's times where things are out of my control and it just makes you hunker down, and you pray or whatever you do to get through that. But at a certain point, I realized that didn't make moves or didn't try things because I assumed the worst case scenario would happen, that all I was doing is sitting huddled in the corner. So then I started asking myself this question. It's very powerful. What's the worst that could happen? If the answer wasn't death or prison or complete financial ruin, how bad could it really be, right? And if I'm scared people are going to say no or reject an idea, what if somebody says yes? So you can flip all of those negative objections with the positive the opposite to it. So for me, I figured out when I get scared, and I won't acknowledge that, I won't tell myself I'm scared. My wife would be like, you're scared. I'm like, but how come I don't feel it? She's like, I don't know, pride, or you're just lying to yourself. I'm like, okay, but what I eventually do is I get pissed off. And when I get pissed off, I take action and I start making aggressive moves to do things differently and find a solution.
Right.
So that's the feeling I have when I take that fear of, what if I try to go on my own and I fail? Or what if I can't afford the taxes and benefits? Or what if everybody says no? Eventually I get mad enough and say, I want to find out and see. I want to see what happens, because this scenario I'm in, this isn't working for me anymore, you know? Right. So it's like a switch, and I think we all have it, but you get to that point where you're sick of hiding in the corner and you want to start fighting.
Right.
Start fighting. You might win, you know? Think about the Rocky movies, you know?
Yep.
You might win, so...
Well, I love what you said about flipping them, because from everything that you said, if I was to lose everything, what if you were to gain everything?
Absolutely.
You know, if I was to not have any money, what if you had money?
Yep.
So if also, they can, kind of switch that mindset. But what, other than getting angry?
Yep.
So you got angry and you decided you were going to fight, and you went on to say that then you just started taking action.
Yep.
But some people will even get angry. They'll want to fight. They're just not sure what to do first. And that causes them to be stuck, which then gets them into a different state of being. So what did you do, or what would you recommend someone would turn that fear into fuel so they're not stuck?
Yep. So I know this is easier said than done, but my advice would be, if what you're doing is not working, try something new. And it's okay to have it not all figured out up front, because no one really does. Start making new action and figure it out on the way. Because at least you're making forward progress. At least you're doing something differently than you're doing now. Because you already know whatever you're doing now is not working. Why stay there?
Right.
You know?
Right. And what would you, so let's say we do talk to the wannabe entrepreneurs out there, and the wannabe startups out there. What would you tell, and you use the term rookie entrepreneur, but what would you tell them as far as what should they be thinking about and then even acting on to ignore the fear and just move forward?
Yep. So this is the advice I would give myself right around that first failure, because I was everything that I'm talking about now. I would say, know what you're trying to do and who you're trying to serve. Right? Does it make sense? You don't have to reinvent the wheel. You can do something existing, but does it make sense? Is it viable? And then be patient. This crazy timeline I had of 3 months to make 80 grand, like, where'd I come up with that? I just want to have a conversation with myself and say, why 3 months? Like, what does that mean? Where'd that come from? But I'm not a patient person by nature at all, but you don't have a choice, because if you talk to successful people and you listen about their story, you're like, wow, you did this for 10 years before it got you where you are now. Wow, that's a long time. So the patience thing, and you have to believe in what you're doing, right? You have to say, okay, and I'm just using this as an example, the role I want to fill, or maybe the service I want to offer is this, and I know there's a need because I know who I'm talking to. And if I believe in that, I believe in myself, I'm willing to go through what I need to get that win. And once you get that first win, you say, okay, maybe I can get another one. You get that validation, you get that tiny bit of momentum, and that can be all it takes for somebody to become a runaway train. Right.
In a beautiful way, a runaway train in a beautiful way.
Yeah.
So how can they say they are now in the mode of starting up, or maybe they're in their career and they're looking to forge a path for themselves? Because like you said, no one would let you forge a path for yourself. And, so what would you tell them to do when they're feeling negative or just questioning or doubtful or insecure about their own business goals and aspirations, what they should do to turn that around?
Yeah, so if somebody's in a career and they want to forge their own path, are you saying like stay within the career or maybe do something on the side for themselves? Either way?
Either way.
Okay. I think it's healthy to have some kind of an outlet, right? If you go to corporate America all week and you come home frustrated and angry, or you want to start a business, you don't want to start something small on the side, right? The worst thing that I could have ever done, and people can do in my opinion, is to just go all in on a crazy idea and see if it works out. Like if you can side hustle and start, it's a safer route. Why risk more than you're willing to lose?
Yep.
Okay. But by just exploring the idea of doing something for yourself, or maybe working for another company or learning new skills, that little bit of positive outlet for you will do wonders for your mental health, for your attitude, for everything. So just having some kind of escape, either on your own or in a different lane, is super helpful for all of us.
Right. Yeah. I have a question going back to the idea that you had all these great ideas that you wanted to be able to implement at work, but no one would give you the opportunity. Is there ever a time where you can just go and act on them, or did you find yourself completely dependent on other people, and therefore someone had to approve you going and do certain work?
Yeah, I think it depends on the role. I definitely had some roles where I could do more independent decision making and ask for forgiveness maybe, and I had other roles where that'd be a horrible idea. One thing I've learned about myself, and I didn't know this until a few years ago, but I have to have creative freedom with how I go from A to B and get clients there, because otherwise it just kills me inside. It's really important to me for me to be happy and at my best. So I never recognized that in the corporate world, but now that I look back, I see that was pretty significant for me.
I think a lot of entrepreneurs or business owners, I think they learn that.
Yep.
Because I would have thought I was a corporate queen forever and a day, that I was going to die in my corporate, reign. And, I've been out of it for 12 years, and I'll tell you what, there was no going back.
Can you imagine going back starting Monday?
Oh, God. Please.
All I would do is laugh. I'd be like, no.
No, I'd be like, Okay, now, so people are fighting, and they're turning their fear into fuel, and they're getting the courage and getting the confidence, because they're getting the know-how as to starting their own business or changing their career paths, or at least going after advancements and opportunities that they want. But a lot of them get so distracted by the squirrel, the shiny object. How do you get your folks to kind of rein it in and not get so distracted?
I had one of these conversations today. It was with an entrepreneur, and I said, you know what, based on everything we're talking about, go back to focusing on the dollar. And what I mean is this other stuff we're talking about doesn't directly contribute money to you or your company. So let's make those side projects for another time. Let's get you back to where you've been. And the same thing I'm doing. Let's focus on making money the right way. Let's go after people we need to. Let's follow up a little harder. Let's create new offers that make sense. Yeah. So I wasted 18 months of Intentionally Inspirational with colors and logos and stuff, making content but not making money. And then once I figured out no money, no business, it's just an expensive hobby, like it changed the way I focused and prioritized on things.
Nice. Very nice. And that certainly would cause one to not get focused. And it's amazing how especially business owners, career professionals, they're secure in their salary and that, weekly, bi-monthly paycheck. Business owners, if you don't eat, if you don't kill, you don't eat. Yet at the same time, they can get at the end of the week and go, what did I do to earn any dollars this week? No, I just spent a lot of time marketing and messaging and sale, or not selling. What would you find to be someone's biggest fear and biggest thing to overcome across the board when clients come to you?
It's interesting because what people will say outwardly is, what if I lose money, or what if it doesn't work out? But when you boil it down, a lot of time it's fear of judgment from others, whether that's the spouse, the neighbor, the family members, the friends, it's when you really boil it down sometimes, it's like, okay, that's the thing.
Right.
And I use this phrase a lot and just in life, but people are judging you on everything you do and don't do. So don't do something that's important to you because you're scared of judgment, because you're already being judged anyway. Can I get an amen?
That's an amen.
Yep.
Yeah. No, it's so true. Well, I always say haters are going to hate.
They are.
And they're, especially when they're not doing and pursuing and acting and achieving what they want, they're going to hate on those that are. They're going to find reason to judge and ridicule and criticize and comment.
Yep.
Yes, I too had to kind of really come face to face with that and acknowledge that. And about 10 years, only 2 years into my own small business journey, And then I just went, you know what? Thank you very much. I'm good type of thing. Yeah, no, that's awesome. I would not have picked that as the number one, but that's definitely up there as far as people's pride. It's their ego. It's their pride, right?
Yep. And it's interesting with your response you just said, it reminded me of another good piece of advice. Be careful who you ask advice from. I've got people that will offer advice to me all the time. And I'm like, wait, are you giving me business advice? You've never even run a lemonade stand. I don't want to hear what you have to say about that.
Right.
You know what I mean? I like your landscape, so if I want to grow grass, I'll ask you about that. But don't give me advice about business until you run a lemonade stand and make money.
Right. And that's like, thank you very much.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So what is the one thing, and I love this question that you provided, but what is the one thing that, especially we're going to talk to the entrepreneurs, but career professionals, you can relate to this too, but what is the one thing that they should be focused on day in and day out? Is it the money that you mentioned earlier?
I mentioned the money earlier as a means to keep the business moving forward. I don't want that to be misconstrued in any way like that, but you got to focus on what are you trying to accomplish. So for the entrepreneur or the career person, you know where you're at today, where are you trying to go, and try to do something every day to make forward progress towards that. Some days you're going to feel like you got all losses. Other days you might get 3 wins in a row. So eyes on the prize, whatever that prize may be to you.
Right. Eyes on the prize. Love that. We'll capture that. Eyes on the Prize by Jason Wright. Okay, so you have a free email template that you are offering our listeners, our special listeners. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yep. So it's called perfectemailsecrets.com. And what it is I've created a free email series welcome template, and this is for the entrepreneurs. So if somebody comes on your list with a lead magnet, what most people do is they're like, now what? And they just kind of hang out on a list forever. What this does is it gives you an introduction to you and your brand, tells them what they can expect, and it gives you the chance to give them some more value. So it's a great way to start a new relationship online. And there's just a quick kind of explainer screen share video with that as well. So I use it myself, and I've used it with dozens of clients. And it's just a great foundation to give you for sure.
All right. So tell us the link again.
Yep. It's perfectemailsecrets.com.
Awesome. Now, and also, is there any way that one can adapt that to LinkedIn? Because you should be building relationships first on LinkedIn before you start selling me stuff. That's up for another day.
Oh, yeah.
But go to my LinkedIn profile and then look up for my latest post. I posted, stop emailing me and linking in with me to only pitch your products and services.
Yeah.
But I digress. But is it something that can be used for that as far as kind of a sequence of ways to connect with people?
Yeah, I mean, it's the same basic, you can use the same basic thing through LinkedIn Messenger or whatever. But yeah, it's a great idea because like you said, generally when people reach out to me on LinkedIn, it's like, hey, I'm Jason. You want to buy my thing? And I'm like, no, it's digital door-to-door sales is what I call it. But once in a while, like once a year, somebody will actually use some kind of a sequence, but I can tell what it is right away because that's like it doesn't really feel genuine because nobody really talks like that.
Right.
But you could use something like that as a framework to think about it differently. So anytime somebody connects with you on LinkedIn or joins your email list, what you should do is take that opportunity to meet your new friend, right? Would you go next door to somebody and just say, I need sugar? Or would you build a relationship, introduce yourself, and then over time maybe feel comfortable asking them for something?
Right.
It's the same kind of thing. So.
Yeah. Yes. Trust me. People, get with Jason before you start hitting that LinkedIn button, please.
Oh, man.
Drives me crazy. All right. So I want to make sure, why don't you share while I gather information, because I want to make sure I repeat all of your ways to connect with you. What's one last big tip that you would provide everyone?
Yep. And just to kind of package up what we've talked about a little bit, I'll give you even more than one tip. It's like one tip with some hyphens maybe.
Nice.
But be patient. Please go after what's important in life. We get one chance to go through this life. Don't get to the end and be full of regret. It's the worst thing. It's the worst position you could ever end up in. Ask yourself, what's the worst that can happen, right? You might get uncomfortable for a while. That's part of the growth process, but go after what's important to you, and please be patient and try to make forward progress towards your goals every day.
Sweet. That is intentionally inspirational, people. Absolutely. And that brings me to, be sure to check out Jason. Go to intentionallyinspirational.com. Learn all about him and what he does. Definitely take advantage of his email template at perfectemailsecrets.com. And then you can hook into him on Facebook, Intentionally Inspirational. Twitter is INS podcast, Intentional Inspiration Podcast, INS. And then LinkedIn, of course, is Jason Wright. But it's Jason J. Wright, in case there's a lot of Jason Wrights out there. But who has a face like that? You know? Who has a face like that?
I don't think it's as good, but I've been told I have a face for radio.
Yeah, me too. Me too. Oh, that's hysterical. All right, well, Jason, thank you. This has been awesome.
Thank you. It's been a lot of fun.
I certainly appreciate you taking the time to be with us and providing us some intentional inspiration. It's been fantastic.
Awesome.
And everyone, again, be sure to, when you are either viewing this or listening to it, be sure to share it, like it, follow us, subscribe, give us a comment. If you have any questions for Jason, don't hesitate to, do I have an email address? Reach out to him at inspire@grayfoxbusiness.com, or post your comment along with our radio broadcast or our video broadcast. Again, iTunes, sheddingthebitch.com, blogtalkradio.com for the podcast. And then you can go to our Shed the Bitch TV channel on YouTube and leave us a comment. And if you have a question for Jason, be sure to post it, and I'll make sure that he gets it and he can follow up with you. So for everyone here in the Shed the Bitch community, thank you so much for joining us, and I'll look forward to having you right back here next Tuesday at noon Eastern time for another episode of the Shed the Bitch Radio. Talk to you soon, everybody. Bye. Bye, Jason.
Thank you for listening to Shedding the Bitch Radio with Bernadette Bose. Join Bernadette every Tuesday at noon Eastern as she helps you shift your bitches to riches. And the dialogue is always going on at sheddingthebitch.com. See you next week.